Morning, everyone. Welcome to Pinocchio on Becoming a Leader. Before we begin, we've actually brought you some sweets from London, so it'd be great if you can take one and pass it on. There are plenty to go around. So welcome to a brand new Agile fairy tale. Today we're going to retell the story of Pinocchio, how a wooden toy became a real boy. And in retelling the story, we hope you'll get a chance to learn about how to become a leader. I'm Portia Tung, and I come from London. I started off my professional life as a Java developer working for the Financial Times. I then became a senior Java developer there, and after that I went off to the BBC to become a development manager. After that, I went on to become a technical consultant, and I actually worked for what used to be Spring Source Interface 21 for a little while with Rod there, and then I moved on to become a more general consultant, and now I work as an Agile consultant coach. I have many roles, so I am at times an Agile coach, I'm also a storyteller, and I'm also a games maker. So I work for a company called Emergent, and this is Pascal.
So, hi, I'm Pascal van Cauwenberghe from Belgium, and I'm also a consultant, project manager, games maker. I used to be a developer in C++. I'm older than Portia.
You can never tell.
And one day, I decided to found my own company to do things right. And so, in 98, 99, started to do Agile software development, the first XP projects in 99. So, I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm still learning. So, maybe one day I'll get it right. And so, my company is called Naima. I'm the owner there. And my blog is on there. Okay. So, about this keynote, we will take you on a journey. And you will be Pinocchio. And on this journey, you will encounter good people, baddies, and talking animals. And we hope you'll get some lessons to become a better leader tomorrow. But before we start, you first have to hear the story of Pinocchio.
So, are you sitting comfortably? Then we shall begin. So once upon a time, there was a lonely old toy maker named Geppetto who really wanted a son. And so one night, after he'd created this toy puppet, he made a wish upon a star for the toy boy to become a real boy. Fortunately for him, the blue fairy was in the neighborhood, and so she popped in and replied to his wish in a voice as clear as crystal and as soft as rose petals. And she said, "Dear Geppetto, since you're such a kind and good man, you have made your own wish come true." And so she turned the wooden toy into a toy boy. However, it was important to note that even though he was a toy boy, he wasn't a real boy. And that was unfortunate for Pinocchio, because deep down, this wooden little toy really, really wanted to be a real boy. And his dream then, to become a real boy, said the blue fairy, was for him to become brave, truthful, and unselfish. And when he could prove that he were all three of these things, then perhaps his dream would come true. And of course, no hero has to travel on their own. And so the blue fairy gives Pinocchio a companion, Jiminy Cricket. I assure you that is a cricket. So, on day one of Pinocchio being a toy boy, Geppetto, his father, says to Pinocchio, "You must go to school. School is important. You will learn many things there." But on his way to school, he meets two troublemakers, namely Bowfellow and Gideon. And put Bowfellow and Gideon together, what do they spell? Oh yes, they spell trouble. And they convince the poor little wooden toy that, you know what? School is for losers. You don't need to go to school. So Pinocchio figures out he's probably too cool for school, and so he abandons that plan because it wasn't really his goal anyway, and he decides to become an actor. Unfortunately, in spite of the promises of the glitzy entertainment industry, all ends up in tears, and before you know it, he's been sold as slave labor by Foulfellow and Gideon. So fortunately, the blue fairy happens to be in the neighborhood again, so she pops by and she saves him. And so she asks Pinocchio, poor Pinocchio, what happened? And so Pinocchio tried to blame Jiminy Cricket for everything that had happened, and before you knew it, his nose had grown, so everyone could tell when he was telling a lie. Fortunately, after his lucky escape from being an actor, he meets Foulfellow and Gideon again, and these two say to him, you know what, Pinocchio, we think you look a little bit tired and disappointed from the whole adventure. We think you need a holiday. Forget school, you need a holiday. And so they convince him to go to a place called Pleasure Island, where all there is to do all day is to eat candy and not do homework. And that seems like a fantastic place for all of us to be, doesn't it? But guess what? Warning. Too much candy turns toy boys into donkeys. So that might be a word of note or warning to all of you currently enjoying your candy.
Now you tell us.
So, fortunately for Pinocchio, Jiminy Cricket this time saves him from turning into a real donkey before he has the chance to become a real boy, and they rush home. But by the time they get home, they discover that Geppetto, his father, had gone off looking for him, and that, you know what? He's been swallowed by the biggest and meanest whale in the world, and that was Monstro the whale. So at that moment in time, Pinocchio thinks to himself, I have a goal now. It is my mission to save my father, even if I might become fish food. And so he decides, by taking that risk, to become a real boy, and he tries to fight the whale, and fortunately, he survives with his father, and of course, the blue fairy was in the neighborhood, and so she said to Pinocchio, well done, Pinocchio. By proving that you are brave, truthful, and unselfish, you yourself have granted your own wish and made it come true. And that's the end of the story.
I think we're a bit early.
Oh, okay.
So, no, it's not the end. There's a bit more. So, you all know this story. You've heard it many times before. You know it all. Yeah? But familiar stories can hide new lessons, if you look at it carefully. So, let's rewind the tape and do an action replay of the most important points in the story. So, action replay. So, here we have Pinocchio coming home, and he sees, oh no, my father's gone. So he says, I need to save him. And he goes off to fight the whale, and he saves his father and becomes a boy. So, what's so special about this scene? Well, this is the first time in the story that Pinocchio sets himself a goal. Before that, all his goals came from someone else. Geppetto told him to go to school, the bad guys told him to go to Pleasure Island and to go into showbiz. But this time, he sets his own goals. That's important. Unless it's your own goal, it doesn't have any value. Or even worse, you could implement someone else's goals, implement the baddie's goal. So the first step in becoming a real boy is to set your own goals.
So, lesson 1. Remember to set your own goals, because if you don't, someone else will. Okay, so over to our first exercise. What you'll find on both sides at the ends of your rows are some index cards. So if you can take the pile and pass them down along the row. What we're going to do is an exercise. Have you grabbed the cards? So imagine you can time travel. Fast forward to the end of the day, the end of the conference. Think about what you want to have achieved. What would make you feel most proud? So we've got an example prepared earlier. These are our goals for today. We'd like to have challenged and inspired the audience. We want to have made you laugh, we want to have made you cry, and we want to have made you think. So you now have 5 minutes to write down your own goals for the conference today. Go.
Okay, I hope you all set your goals for today. So, I guess most of you are developers, testers, managers of software development, product managers maybe. Yeah. So, do you ask yourself from time to time, what is the goal of what I'm making? So, what is what I'm making doing for our users, for our customers? How does it change their life? Because our goal is not to create software. Our goal is to solve problems and create opportunities for our customers and our users. And software is sometimes the solution. Most often it's the problem. So always need to ask, what is my goal? What is your goal for being here today?
So here's a story for you. Recently, I was hired to go in to do a one-week workshop to improve an application. It was a web application for a company. So we all got together. You had the product managers, you had your analysts, your developers, your testers, your user experience folks, pretty much your typical well-balanced team. And we started looking at the application, and we looked at the problems and the issues. And the first thing the developers said was, we know what we need to do. And we said, okay, great, you know, you guys are solution focused, what do you think? And they said, we need to throw the application away. What we need is to write a brand new, shiny application. So we said, okay, well, that's certainly an option, thank you. But let's really try to spend a bit more time understanding what the real problem is. So we talked a little bit more, and they said, no, that's it, we know the solution. And we said, okay, well, what do you suggest this time? They said, well, we can take this Excel spreadsheet, hook it up to Lotus Notes, use a bit of XSLT, and then bam, that will solve the problem. And we said, well, you know what, we're still not convinced we really understand the problem, because, you know what, actually, we already have in the application what the customers need. The problem is the customers can't see it or find the information easily, and that we're not handling the calls for help quickly enough. So we talked a bit again, and afterwards, during the session, the service desk department said, well, you know what, maybe it's not about building new software or really drastically changing the new one, the old one. What in fact we need to do is maybe shuffle around some of the information on the web pages, just visually, to make it more usable and user-friendly. And what we'll do is we'll prioritize the calls for customers who need help. And by doing that, we can service them and point them to the right location and help them better. And the result was something which was going to cost tens and hundreds of thousands of pounds to rewrite an entire application from scratch, only cost much less because we looked at the problem and we were really trying to solve the problem instead of pushing a solution onto the customer.
Set your goals and solve the problems. But there's more in that simple little story. So let's do another action replay. Let's look at the same scene. So Pinocchio says, I need to save my father. Well, great. If he had stopped there, he would be an orphan by now. The next step was the most important. He took responsibility of saving his father, even if it meant that he had to confront the dangerous whale. So he can't solve his problem and become a real boy if he didn't take responsibility even in the face of danger, especially in the face of danger.
So lesson 2 is to take responsibility for the goals you define yourself. And of course, we're over to exercise number 2 now. So if you take your card where you've written out your goal, what we'd like you to do is define some acceptance criteria so we know when you've met your goals. Here's one we prepared earlier. So for us, we're going to ask you at the end of the session to see if you've had fun, to see if there was a buzz during the exercises, and of course, to see if you've learned something meaningful about yourself. So you have 3 minutes to come up with some acceptance criteria for your goals. Go. Okay, time's up.
Next up, commit.
Okay, so what we're going to do is step 3 in our second exercise, and it's to commit to your goals. It's very important to actually share your goals and acceptance criteria with a friend or neighbor, because by reading them out loud, it makes you more determined. So what we'd like you to do now is if you can turn to one of your neighbors and share your story with them, your goals. You have 2 minutes. Go.
Okay, it sounds like it's going to be a fun conference. Lots of goals. Yeah. So the important thing is to take responsibility for those goals. Personal responsibility. Yeah. So how many leaders should there be in a team? Well, there are several options. Some people say that agile teams have no leaders. They are leaderless. They are self-organizing. Okay? Some methods say there should be one leader. You should appoint one person who is the mistress of the whole process. Well, there's another option. In the best agile teams I've been in, there were lots of leaders. Everybody was a leader at different times. If there is a problem, someone sees a problem, they take responsibility to solve that problem. When someone else sees an opportunity, they take responsibility to seize that opportunity. And good leaders have the courage to ask for help. So you never solve the problem alone, solve them with the whole team. These are the best teams. But there are at least 2 conditions to make that work. First of all, you have to set clear goals. And one of the ways we do this is by creating something called a business value model, where we agree how are we going to define value, how are we going to measure it, what's more important. And we do this with the whole team. So number 1, you have to have clear goals. And the second one is you have to have clear boundaries. Everybody has to know, okay, as long as you go for the goal and you stay within these boundaries, hey, you do whatever you need to do. If I'm managing a project and you're a developer, hey, you're a professional. You know how to refactor. You know how to unit test. I'm not going to work on that. But there are certain boundaries. If your work affects the way the plan is going, then you need to come to the project manager. So clear goals and clear boundaries. And then you can take responsibility. And can't take responsibility for others. For example, in one team I coached last year, 2 developers came up to me. They said, Pascal, can you tell us how we can make those developers pair program? I said, okay. Do you too pair program? Oh, no. But those less experienced programmers should pair program. It's not easy to make other people do something. But I know a trick. You know what? If people don't do something, it's because they're not convinced of the benefits. So what if you two started pair programming? And if you show that it was so much fun and so productive, maybe the others will do it too. I said, that's a great trick. Thank you. We'll try it. I said, yeah, go ahead. If it doesn't work, come back. We'll do something else. So you can't make others do something. You have to take, if you want other people to pair program, well, start pair programming first. You want other people to do unit testing, unit test first. And show other people the benefits. So, there's another scene that we need to look back at. You all know this scene. If you think about Pinocchio, what do you think about? The nose. Pinocchio's nose grows when he lies. So the blue fairy gave him the nose. And the nose is the feedback. Feedback that something is not right. And that kind of feedback is hard to ignore. Most of us ignore feedback. So you have to listen to the feedback and then take action on it. So what's our third lesson?
So lesson number 3, it's all about continuous improvement. And in order to improve, you can only change yourself, so you start there. So let's do our third exercise. If you can all take a second index card, there should be plenty to go around, especially for the folks at the back there. I look forward to you scribbling a little bit more there. So what we're going to do is an exercise called Feed Forward, and it was invented by a chap called Marshall Goldsmith. What we'd like you to do first, when you get the card, is to identify one flaw, yeah? One flaw or shortcoming that you would like to remove. Okay? So, we're going to show you how we're going to do this. So, Pascal, name a flaw. What flaw do you have?
Me? Don't think I have any.
So, the key thing to remember about leadership is you have to lead by example. So, I'll go first. One of my flaws is I'm too judgmental. So, do you have a flaw now, Pascal?
Well, if you insist, I think I have a problem because I always want to win every argument. That's because I'm always right, of course.
So, if you can take your new index card and note down one flaw that you would like to address. Okay, so once you've got your flaw, what we've got to do is turn it into a question so that we can ask for help. For example, to ask for help, I would ask Pascal, how can I be less judgmental? So how would you phrase your flaw into a question, Pascal?
Well, how can I avoid having to win every argument?
So if you can take a moment now and rephrase your flaw as a question to ask for help. Okay, and now for the third part of the exercise. We're going to get you to all stand up. So if you would all stand up. See, Agile requires a lot of exercise. It's really quite good for your health, not just your mind. Great. So you've got your card, and what we'd like you to do is ask as many people as you can in the next 2 minutes your question. Yeah? There are only 2 rules. You're only allowed to ask the question, and if someone gives you an answer, what is the only right piece of what is the only right answer if someone gives you an answer? Thank you, indeed. So we're just going to show you the demo. So Pascal, I'm a bit too judgmental. How can I be less judgmental?
Before you talk to someone, think, wow, this is the greatest person I've ever met.
That's a really good idea. Thank you. Pascal.
How can I avoid the need to win every argument?
Recognize that there are smarter people than you out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, so your 2 minutes, feel free to circulate. and ask as many people as you can, and you might want to note down some of those wonderful suggestions. Go!
Okay. That was hard work. Now it's back to us. So, you must improve all the time to reach your goal. So, I come in many companies, and they all say they do retrospectives. But when we do the real project, people often say, "Oh no, not again?" And I ask, what do you mean? "Yeah, we had the same problem in the last project." "Oh, and in the project before that? And in the project before that?" "Well, didn't you do a retrospective?" "Yeah, we talked about that." "Yeah. And did you find a solution?" "Yeah. And did you do it?" "No." So, do you know this movie, Hedgehog Day?
Oh, Pascal, I think you mean Groundhog Day?
Huh? Okay, maybe she's smarter than me. Okay, do you know Groundhog Day, the movie with Bill Murray? He's stuck in the same day. Many people in companies are stuck in the same day all over again. Every project, the same problem all over again. So you can talk about the problems, but you have to do something about it. For example, we're consulting in a company, and before we started to work with the team, the CTO talked with us and he said, "My team, they're not efficient. They're doing 1 week iteration, and every iteration, they do a retrospective. This is not efficient. Can you do something about that?" So we worked a bit with the team and said, 1 retrospective per week, that's not efficient. So we moved to 2 retrospectives a day. Went a lot better. But very short retrospectives, stand up at the whiteboard. Because what they were doing every week was talking about the same problem over and over again. But in the stand-up, they couldn't talk about the big problems. Could only solve small problems at the time. Each time they took a small step, each time they improved a bit. What can you improve until the next retrospective, which is half a day? Not a lot. But if you do this every day, then they really started to improve. And the CTO was happy, because their efficiency went up. So small steps, very important. Otherwise, you never get anything done. So, to sum up, every fairy tale has a moral. What's the moral of this fairy tale?
Okay, so the moral of the fairy tale is to lead a meaningful life. So it's important to remember to set your own goals, and of course, to take responsibility to achieve them. And finally, to continuously improve. So in a nutshell, it's know where you're going, get going, and keep going. And of course, to remember to always be brave, truthful, and unselfish.
So children, what have we learned today? How do you become a leader?
So what we find is the most effective for people to work in is as leaderful teams. And that's where everyone is a leader. We are leading ourselves, and we're helping to lead one another. And one of the experiences, in fact, a common experience I have with teams is the opportunity that Agile creates. So very often in organizations, what you'll find is you get your classic people who are deemed as very successful, they're high flyers, and they're probably the first people I hear about as a consultant. And they say, "Oh, Portia, so-and-so, he's fantastic. He gets things done and always meets the deadline and, he's good." So I say to this manager, I say, "Well, what does this team think about him? What's their feedback?" And then he kind of says, "I'm not really sure." And guess what? With Agile, Agile creates the opportunity for everyone to become a leader. And as a result, when we work with these teams, we look for leadership potential. And it's precisely the people who are able to become brave, truthful, and unselfish. They are the new leaders that emerge. And that is the difference. And so what you will find is that in Agile, People who were previously maybe more quiet, more humble, and just got things done, you know, all of a sudden they are recognized, yeah, to be leaders of this next generation. And that's something very important to bear in mind. It's a gift, it's an opportunity.
And the second lesson is to always keep the goal in mind. So when someone asks us to build something, the first question should be, why? Children are very good at asking why. Those who have children probably can confirm this. Why? And sometime when we grow up, we lose this skill. Well, we should learn to ask why, to find the real reason behind what we're doing. And why should you do that? When someone asks, why are you always asking these why questions? Well, if you have to give a reason, on several projects, we delivered projects in a quarter of the time of our competition. Why? Could we type 4 times faster than the competition? Unlikely, I can only type with 2 fingers. Can we program 4 times faster than the competition? Well, we were faster because we were doing TDD, we were doing unit testing, automated build, automated acceptance testing, all of this. We measured it and it's faster, but not 4 times faster. So how do you get 4 times faster than the competition? By really understanding what the problem of the customer is. Instead of giving him 100 features that might solve the problem, find those 20 features that really solve the problem. It's faster to develop, cheaper, is better, easier to use. That's why you do it. That's why you ask those questions. So if you need to prove that you get results, do this. Only build the stuff that's really needed. So now it's the end, finally. Yeah?
Pascal? Oh no, it's not. I think you'll find we've got one more exercise.
Oh,
so
no.
help yourselves to another index card. So one of the good things and one of the key things about Agile is to always practice, practice, practice. And you know, people say practice makes perfect. I tell you what, practice helps you become better at what you do. But perfection is simply something you strive for. It's not something you can attain because it's perfection. So we're going to practice. What we're going to do is we're going to do the same exercise, the same goal-setting exercise with acceptance criteria, but this time with your life. So take a deep breath. Imagine you are now 95 years old. You're surrounded by your friends and family, and maybe some small animals if you're so inclined. And you look back on your life and you think to yourself, what have I achieved? If you can note down those goals and acceptance criteria on your card, you have 3 minutes. Go. Okay, guys, so what's the next step of this exercise? Does anyone remember? We've identified the goals, we defined the acceptance criteria. What do we get feedback? Yeah, get feedback. So we're going to have to demonstrate some commitment. So one of the ways to do commitment is by sharing, your goals with each other. So you're going to have 3 minutes to share your goals and acceptance criteria with 2 people. And remember, they're strangers, they're friends, so they won't judge you. Have fun. 3 minutes, 2 people. Go. Okay, so here's the start of a new day, a start to a new beginning. So we very much hope you'll have a chance to create your own happy ending. You've got your cards in your pocket, and of course, more importantly, you've got the card for today, your goals and acceptance criteria for today. So we enthusiastically urge you to review those at the end of today.
And it's still not done, it's still not done. You have to do something, you have to do the acceptance test. So, first element of the acceptance test, can everybody who had fun raise their hand? Okay, and keep it there while I count. 1, 2, 3, 4, many. Okay. So can everybody who heard a buzz during the exercises raise their hands?
By buzz, we mean feel excited.
Okay. And can everybody who learned something meaningful about themselves raise their hands? Okay? So, thank you. We'll hope you do the same thing at the end of the conference, review your acceptance criteria, see how many pass, and then again, what are you going to do tomorrow to make your goals come true?
Pascal, I think we've got some extra good news for this keynote as well. Guess what, guys? Look at that. I think it's the first time ever that a keynote, A, lands on time, but it's a little bit early as well, you know. It's a bit like being on a flight home, you know, and the flight just lands elegantly on the flight path, and you can get home a little bit earlier. And in our case, we hope that you're going to be working to a sustainable pace for the rest of the day. So we're going to give you a 5-minute head start. To wrap things up then, you can find out more about Agile Fairy Tales on agilefairytales.com. It's all about a series of games that help us rediscover the lessons we learned as children but have since forgotten. And so thank you very much for participating. You can find us a little bit more on Immersion as well, Naima, and of course there's a LinkedIn group for Agile Fairy Tales. All of these materials are Creative Commons, so feel free to go along and download them, and we'd appreciate if you'd attribute us when you share them with your friends and family. There also are blogs, selfishprogramming.org, that's my blog, and also Pascal's blog, blog.naima.be. And thank you so much for the learning that we've had ourselves today and the fun as well. And you can even download more games on agilecoach.net. Again, all Creative Commons. Thank you very much.
Yeah, have fun. You bow? You bow?